Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of The Mayor and I with me, Lindsay Khan, and the delightful Nick Buckley, MBE. Welcome Nick.
Thank you.
Our weekly chat about events, issues, and currently we're doing local things because we're running up to the election on the 2nd of May, where Nick will be voted in as the new Mayor of Manchester. And
that's what it's looking like.
That's what it's looking like.
If you can believe Facebook and Twitter, I'm going to win.
The stats are up there. And this week we're looking at Andy Burnham's manifesto. But in fact, we're not looking at Andy Burnham's manifesto, are we, Nick? Because we can't find his manifesto.
I mean, I've seriously looked for days and days and days. I've been on his social media. I've been on his Facebook, scrolling down, thinking there'll be a link somewhere saying, see my full manifesto. I've been on his website. The only manifesto on his website is 3 years old. It's his old manifesto. But as I'm scrolling through his Facebook page, pledges kept popping up. And I found 5 pledges that he says are from my manifesto that I can't find. So I then made the notes of these 5 pledges that he wants to be re-elected on these 5 pledges.
And I think we asked our viewers a couple of episodes ago if they could find this manifesto, if they could send it to us. I'm assuming nobody has.
No one could find
sent
it
to you. And my first question is, what is a pledge?
A pledge is basically a promise, but we don't call it a promise because you're not supposed to break promises. So we call them pledges instead.
But you can break pledges.
Politicians do it all the time.
I'll remember that in future. Right. So rather than promise people things, I'll pledge in the future. And the first pledge is...
And that goes back to what I said on the last episode. Be very careful. Inspect the words politicians use.
Yes.
Because they use certain words for certain reasons.
Yeah.
You don't break a promise. A pledge is just, I'm going to try.
And it's so deceitful that they do that as well.
Yes, it is.
It's so grubby, deceitful, underhand that they do that. And I remember years ago, a politician who most of our viewers probably don't remember, he was, and I can't remember his name now, but he was asked a question and he phrased the response in such a way it was clear that he was avoiding the correct answer. I need to remember his name. I'll remember it before the end of the broadcast. And also, I think, remember Bill Clinton doing that when he said, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, because he'd read the definition of sexual relations and that didn't include oral sex.
Yes.
So he said, I didn't have sexual relations with that woman. Leo, something it was.
Leo Sayer?
No, possibly. I'll remember his name before then. So the first one is... this is really very irritating because it's virtue signalling at the highest level in my view. So Andy, good old Andy, has made a personal commitment to donate 15% of his salary every month to support ABEN. ABN is what? Sorry,
A bed every night.
A bed every night.
So that's his homeless project.
So basically, good old Andy's giving 15% of his salary to support ABN. Why is this just generally a sickening pledge, Nick?
So, to be fair to him, he's been doing this for 7 years. So he's been in post 7 years. Every month he donates 15% of his salary. I think it works out about roughly 20 grand a year, which is a substantial amount of money. It's great publicity. It's virtue signalling. And my main point on this is, Andy, I'd like you to keep all your wages but solve rough sleeping in Greater Manchester. To me, it seems like he knows he can't solve rough sleeping, and this is the penalty he imposes upon himself for not fixing our rough sleeping crisis. So he's penalising himself. It's like he works all year for his wage, and at the end of the year he goes, I don't deserve all that because I'm crap. I'm going to give the taxpayer, but he doesn't even give the taxpayer it back. He puts it into his own project to help rough sleeping and makes him look like he's a virtuous person. It just annoys me.
And if you were standing in front of him, what would you say to him about that?
Keep all the money and fix the problem. or use that 15% to hire somebody else to fix the problem. But stop giving me excuses, and stop giving me excuse you can't fix it, and then you're penalising yourself for it. Fix the problem, or resign and step down, and give someone else a chance to fix the problem instead of handing someone the money back.
And you've made the point here that this was his first manifesto promise, is that correct?
7 years ago.
7 years ago.
7 years ago, he said, within 3 years, I will end rough sleeping in Greater Manchester. Within 3 years.
Yeah, and he hasn't.
His first couple of years, it dropped quite a bit, because he spent £500 million on it. And then ever since then, it's been going up again. It's almost as bad today as it was 7 years ago. And he's still spending millions of pounds on it every year now, and achieving nothing. I'm going to put a tweet on the screen now, so we can't see it, but it's there.
You're going to do it, okay.
I tweeted Andy Burnham before Christmas saying, Andy, you've not lived up to your promise. It's been 7 years now. You said you'd fix it in 3. And he replied back to me on Twitter and said, I think you'll find there's spare beds in Greater Manchester every night. I think you'll find I've lived up to my promise that I made 6 years ago. And my reply was, your promise wasn't to have spare beds in Greater Manchester. Your promise was to end rough sleeping. Anybody in any city centre, town centre in Greater Manchester, it's not even just Greater, it's not even the city centre anymore now, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
We see people.
Yeah.
The fact you've got some spare beds just means your project's incompetent, because why have you got spare beds when we can see people living on the streets? You haven't ended it. That was the promise. Sorry, that was the pledge you made to end rough sleeping. He hasn't done it. How much longer do we give this man to solve this problem?
That's a really good point.
I can solve it in 1 year.
Okay.
I can solve rough sleeping in 1 year with a fraction of the money he's got.
How will you solve rough sleeping in a year, Nick?
I'm going to end begging in a couple of months, so there'll be no more begging. So nobody new will want to come to Greater Manchester because there's no more begging.
So that the police will just grab somebody who's begging, will they?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Not grab. They'll be moved on for the first couple of weeks, and they'll be, and then if they carry on, they'll be arrested. You'll spend all day in custody. You won't go to court, but you'll spend all day in custody while we process you. Then we'll give you a warning and send you out. No point clogging the courts up with someone begging. And it'll get to a stage where people will go, there's no point begging in Greater Manchester. By the time I sit down, I've got a police officer there. If they search me, they confiscate my drugs off me. So I've lost my drugs. I make no money anymore now. So what's the point of sitting there? I just get hassle after hassle after hassle. So that will stop new people coming to Greater Manchester to make money for drugs. And then I'm going to open a set of hostels in warehouses with camp beds in garden sheds, and we get people off the street the minute we meet them. None of this, you've got to wait for a bed, or can you come to the town hall and register? No, we'll get people off the street straight away. It won't be luxurious accommodation because that just attracts people to Greater Manchester. It'll be safe accommodation. And then we need to tackle some of the other problems connected to it. But it can be done in a year.
You actually physically get people off the streets if they're sleeping and say, right, come with me now.
We'll pay for taxis, we'll pay for minibus, we'll take their dogs, we'll take their belongings. Any excuse not to come with us, we'll overcome.
Yeah.
And the ones who then still won't get help, we're then going to have to look at some of the mental health legislation and take him into protective custody, because you're killing yourself on the street, and we're not willing to have that done. All can be done, it just takes someone with a backbone.
So why hasn't Andy Burnham done this?
Has got a backbone. Andy Burnham employed the same people to help him with his rough sleeping problem that were running the rough sleeping services in Greater Manchester for the last 20, 30 years. So the people who couldn't solve it over 20, 30 years are the people he's got running his services now. And we expect a different outcome with the same people.
You almost get the impression he's not really interested in Manchester. You almost get the impression he just does a lot of talking, but then he's doing other things.
Yeah, the thing he's doing, and he's spending most of his time doing, is trying to become Prime Minister. That was his aim, becoming mayor. He wants to use the backs of the people of Greater Manchester to promote his career, ready for when he gets to Parliament, to stab Keir Starmer in the back and become Prime Minister. That's what he's always wanted, which is a great aim, a great aspiration. Good for him for aiming for the stars. But you shouldn't achieve your dream on the backs of other people.
Well, on the backs of Greater Manchester
Yeah.
voters and taxis, I
Yeah.
guess. The second piece of news here, there's a red tent camp outside of Manchester. What is this about? I'm not even aware of this.
Yeah, so if you go to Manchester Town Hall,
Yeah.
there is about 30, 40 people camping.
Oh, it's outside Manchester Town Hall.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you said outside. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, outside Manchester Town Hall.
On the square in front.
You know the cloisters where
Yeah.
the overhang.
Yeah.
They're all in there around the town hall. It started off a couple of weeks ago as a protest against protest in support of Free Palestine. So we're going to camp outside the town hall. Within a day, they attracted homeless people. So now homeless people are living in some of the tents, and there's some refugees, homeless refugees, are living there now as well. So it's become a pick and mix. Whatever your issue is, come today, because we've got Free Palestine, anti-Israel, homelessness, support for refugees, and we're all living outside the town hall. We've had this before, but the reason why this has been allowed to happen at the moment outside the town hall, and they didn't know this themselves, it's election time. Manchester Town Hall is allowing them to stay because they're scared stiff of bad publicity when they try to move them.
So, and just before they want the votes.
Just before they want everybody's votes, they don't want to come across as a nasty council, who are all Labour councillors anyway, near enough. And they don't want to embarrass Andy Burnham. So they're allowing all these people to camp outside the town hall until after the election. Once the election's come and gone, we'll do another podcast on this. Watch the council deal with these people then. They won't be there a month after the election.
Really?
They'll have them all gone. They'll remove the tents, they'll have the police doing it, they'll be giving them asbos, they'll all be gone. But they don't want that bad publicity at the moment. I videoed this the other day. It stinks of urine. Half the people...
Is that video on your podcast?
Yeah,
Right, I've not seen that one.
Yeah.
So you're actually walking around...
Yeah. So it's only a 20-second video.
Yeah.
It's a mess. Half the people look like they've got mental health issues, which is most rough sleepers anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm not being disparaging there.
Yeah.
Most rough sleepers have got mental health issues.
Well, you know this yourself from your charity. Yeah.
But then you've got some there who are just doing it because that's what they do. They're an activist. Some of them said, I'm an activist. Activists have to do things like this to stay relevant. They don't solve any problems. All they want to do is raise a problem. And then when you come up with some solutions, it's like, oh, we don't like those solutions. We want you to solve these problems, but in a way that we like. That's how I know most of these activists are not genuine. Because if you're a genuine activist and you wanted people off the streets, your answer would be, I don't care how you solve this problem. I want these people off the streets for their benefit. But when people say to you, I want homeless people off the streets, but I want it this way, it has to be eco-friendly, it has to be pink and fluffy, it's like, you just make it harder to get people off the streets. So always be careful of activists who put demands on how you solve social problems.
You put here university example. What's that about?
Yes, so when I said then about how the council remove all these things after the election, how I know this is true is because I worked on this 6 years ago, I'm guessing, outside of the McDonald's hotel near Piccadilly train station. There's a big piece of grass land that's owned by University of Manchester. 6-7 years ago, there was a big encampment there of homeless people, and my charity used to go there every day trying to get people accommodation and work with them. The hotel constantly complained because they're a 4 or 5 star hotel, they've got international visitors, and they're getting complaints saying, I open window and I can see the third world outside my window. Customers were being hassled coming and going from the hotel, being begging for this, for that. There was violence there, there was fights, police turning up, and this hotel was driving them mad, losing business. They lost some big bookings, they were telling me, some really big bookings. So why it was there 11 months? Why was it allowed to be there 11 months?
Wow.
First of all, because the council couldn't do anything on its own because it was private land. It was university land. The council then started working with university, who basically said, we'd like it gone, but we don't want it gone while the students are here, because students are customers now, and most of our students are in support of homelessness, which is a weird thing to be in support of, people being homeless, but that's what it seems sometimes. We will evict that camp after the summer exams, because we've got 6-8 weeks when all the students go home. We're going to evict it. We're going to evict the camp then, because what we don't want is to evict it now and have all our students protesting and ruining the reputation of the university. We want this done quietly. So once the summer holidays came, 2-month break for university students, all got evicted. And that's what's going to happen at Town Hall. We will do these things, but only when it benefits us. Only when we're not going to get publicly criticised on social media.
So just summarising that, Andy Burnham's campaign pledge, he was going to get rid of people, homeless people off the streets. He's not got rid of homeless people from the streets, and in fact at the moment there's a massive homeless encampment outside the Manchester Town Hall.
He's had 7 years. If we want him to solve this problem, how much time do we give him? He's had, and if he gets elected again, it would be, by the time he runs again, he would have had a decade, and he still hasn't solved it.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated. How long do we give politicians to solve our problems?
Well, forever it seems.
It seems like that.
I understand your frustration. The second campaign pledge you found, Andy, sounds good to me this. Andy's going to bring in a half-price monthly fare for 18 to 21-year-olds on the transport network, I guess, of Greater Manchester. Yeah. So that sounds good to me. You know, it's good that young people can travel free. What's
I thought you meant you were going to try to pass as an 18, 21-year-old.
I might do that as well. Yeah. No, I'm ready for my bus pass. Yeah. So that sounds like a good thing to me. What's the problem?
It's a good thing if you're 18, 19, 20, 21. But here we go again with socialist politicians giving our money away again. Why are we treating these young people different and special compared to anybody else? Why? I know the answer why, because he's already done it once before with 16, 17-year-olds. He's looking at his voter base and he's bribing them with, look what I'm giving you for free half-price bus tickets. And it's not cost-free. We're paying for this. We pay part of our council tax now, go to this project. So we're paying for this. And I could understand if he said the poorest young people in our city, it stops them getting jobs, it stops them seeking jobs. Well, I understand that. And the job centre already give job seekers free bus passes if that helps them seek out jobs. And I'm for that. If that's the barrier for you getting a job and improving your life, then of course the state should help that barrier. 16 quid a week, free bus pass, if that gets you a job, that's a 16 quid well worth spent.
Yeah.
But he's not doing that. He's saying when your kids were 16, 17, 18, they didn't need a free, because that was your job to make sure they could travel. Yeah. So we're taking responsibility away from parents again. 4 or 5 years ago, he already did this with 16, 17-year-olds. He gave them free bus travel, and that still exists now. So 16, 17-year-olds can get a bus anywhere in Greater Manchester free of charge. He's now extending it up to 21-year-olds. All these people are voters, or will be voters very soon.
Yeah.
This is a bribe by a socialist mayor to keep the young voter base on his side.
Yeah.
He's not improving anything else. He doesn't mind if they get stabbed to death on the bus, but at least they were travelling half price. And what do you expect for half price? You've got to take some risk, and being stabbed to death on the bus is one of those risks he's quite happy to have.
Yeah. You're right, there is no rationale in that. You know, he's not selecting a particular group within that 18-20. It's just all of them. Carte blanche. Many of them may be working, earning a good wage or whatever it might be, living at home, so not paying any rent, but which a lot of young people do. And he's giving it to everybody. But yeah, to me, you're right. I think it's a very cynical decision made to try and garner votes from that population, who are known for not particularly voting as well.
Yeah.
They're not particularly big voters. So if they do vote, or they're stimulated to vote, this might be a way to get them to do it.
And if you want to know why your council tax is going up every year, the bit for the mayor goes up every year, this is one of the reasons why. You're now paying for all young people under 21, 16 to 21, you're paying for them to have half price or free transport travel in Greater Manchester. You're paying for this.
I'm not happy.
I'm not happy.
And this is part of the B network thing, isn't it? It's all kind of wrapped up in that. But also there's an article we've highlighted in Wigan today where basically the B network buses are being rebranded, and rebranding just means painted.
And a new logo.
In a new logo. And that's costing how much, Nick?
4.9 million.
Wow.
Let's call it 5 million.
Yeah, let's call it
£5 million to repaint the buses in Greater Manchester. So this isn't to buy new buses. This isn't to put logos on the new buses because they come already done. This is to get the old buses, spray them all yellow and put some bees on them. £5 million. I understand why he's done that, because if you're in Greater Manchester at a bus stop and an orange bus comes past, you're not sure if that's a Manchester bus. You're not sure where that goes. Well, does it matter? It's got 192 on it. You know it goes from Longside to Stockport. I'm going to get on it. This is a vanity project by the mayor to make sure everything's branded so he can say, this is my project. Look at me, King of the North. I've now all the buses. Plus, when these old buses are painted yellow, they look like new buses. So now we can say, look what I've done for you. No, it's a 12-year-old diesel bus you've got painted yellow. But everyone's going to think he's got all these new buses. It's a vanity project that we're paying for with our taxes, with our council tax. And let's say the B Network is an amazing project, which it isn't, but let's say it is an amazing project. Couldn't he spend that £5 million instead of painting them all yellow? Couldn't he spend that making the project even better?
Yeah.
Or buying security for the buses, buying security for the tram network, because 20% of all users of the metro don't even pay. Don't pay.
Yeah.
He could have used that £5 million on the transport to make it cleaner, better, safer, more comfortable. But no, he wanted the vanity project of yellow buses, because when you see a yellow bus, you think of Andy Burnham. And that's what he wants in Greater Manchester. Yellow bus, yellow tram. Andy Burnham's doing an amazing job. Well, he might be. On the back of your tax dollar. That's how he's doing it.
I think the £5 million there, £300 million on CAS. I'm just thinking, one thing I'm noticing a lot these days are potholes on all the roads.
Yeah.
Why can't you just spend that money on those things? Things that practically can help people, drivers, users of the...
He doesn't want you in your car. Yeah. He actively wants you out of your car.
Yeah, but the buses travel on the same roads, don't they?
Yeah.
They've got to deal with the potholes as well.
They do. Now, what people don't know about the B Network, is his plan. He has to increase passenger numbers on the buses over the next 3-4 years by 30%. And if he doesn't, the project will go bankrupt, because a lot of this has been pre-funded by government.
Right.
So
he's spending the money, but he's got to start making profit.
Yeah, and there's no way you're going to create bus numbers by 30% in 3-4 years.
But has he ever run a business in his life?
He's only ever been a politician. And that's part of the problem as well.
Yeah.
He thinks, because I say so, it's bound to be done.
Yeah.
Because I pray numbers will increase, it's bound to be done. Because I painted the buses yellow, it's bound to increase. No. Humans are very complicated.
Yeah.
We never know what humans are going to do next.
Correct.
We never know.
Yeah.
You can build something and we go, we never wanted that. But you told us you wanted it. Yeah, but we told you that because we thought that's what you wanted to hear. Humans are very complicated. We never know what they want or what they're going to do until they're doing it. And so he keeps wasting all this money, but he's a socialist. And that's what socialists are great at. They're great at spending other people's money until it runs out.
Not great at making it.
No. And if the buses run out of money, it all goes bankrupt. And then we have the same bus companies again, who then will have to ramp up fares to compensate for all the debt they're in. Or our council tax will go up, which is probably the most likely thing. Our council tax will go up to start paying for the buses again.
That's where the money comes from us.
It's
not earned, is it?
No, he's based his scheme on a London model. The London bus transport system goes bankrupt every 3-4 years in London, and government bails it out. He says he's based it on the London model, which goes bankrupt every 3-4 years.
Talking about public sector and waste of money, there's something here what I wasn't aware of. Bolton Council have been loaning money to Birmingham Council, who went bust. Is that correct?
That's correct. This is all in the public sphere, so these aren't conspiracy theories. I didn't know this went on.
We can't blame Andy for this, can we?
No.
All right.
No, we
We'll
can't.
give him a short rest.
Yeah, it turns out this... I put this in because this was an example of incompetence, of people using taxpayers' money for the wrong reasons. So Bolton Council have borrowed Birmingham Council 10 million and now Birmingham's bankrupt, so they're never going to get that back. And then I mentioned this on Twitter and Facebook because I thought this was a one-off, and some said, Nick, this is not a one-off, this has been going on for ages, and lots of councils do it. Here's what Bolton does. So they took a screenshot of a Bolton Council's financial records of who they've borrowed money to. There's a list of other councils in there. So there's two things here. So Bolton has either got far too much money and does it, and no problems in Bolton, by the way. Otherwise,
Nothing to spend the
they'll
money
be
on.
spending that money on fixing Bolton's problems. But it's a lovely place, Bolton, so they've got no problems. So we're going to help out other areas. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is, which all councils need, is a backup fund. So they all want reserves in case things happen, and that's a sensible thing to have, is reserves. You know, most councils have between 50 and 100 million in reserves, which people go, spend it. Well, no, because what happens down the line, you want some cushion there. I get that. So if that's their cushion, what are they doing investing it in dodgy deals? Many councils, I think Bolton was one of them, 10 years ago, invested their savings in Icelandic banks.
Yes.
And then what happened? The Icelandic banks all went bust, and they lost hundreds of millions. So councils should not be taking risks with their reserves. They should be in a bank, and that bank might only pay 2 or 3% interest, but it's guaranteed, it's safe. That's where our money in councils need to be put. Doesn't earn a lot, but they're completely safe. Not giving them to councils that are going bankrupt. But this is how our politicians treat our money. They treat it as if it's a game. They treat it as if it's monopoly. Because what happens when they go bankrupt, what's happening to Birmingham now? Government's bailing them out, and they're having to increase council tax by 20%. So who pays for it? We all pay for these mistakes. We never go back to the chief executive of the council or the whoever's in charge of finance at the council and go, you did these things. These things weren't criminal, but we're holding you. We're going to sack you, or we're going to name and shame you because you made the wrong decisions. We never do that.
We're going to jail you.
If they broke the law. But they never break it. All these things are legal. But if I'm mayor, I'm going to be looking at these things, and I'll be telling the public, I'll be saying to the people of Bolton, do you know this is going on? Do you know they're risking your money for the benefit of other councils? They're more interested in the people of Birmingham than your future. You need to know this so you can vote in better politicians.
Than your future or your present.
Yes.
Things that need fixing now in Bolton. There's lots that needs fixing in Bolton.
I'm damn right there is.
Back to Andy's pledges. And again, it sounds like a great pledge, this one, so I don't know why you have an issue with it, Nick. Andy is looking to establish, good old Andy, the Greater Manchester Commission on Social Care, which is basically free social care for everyone, as I understand it. You can't complain about that. That's fantastic.
Again, pink fluffy sounds great. Who doesn't want free social care for everybody? A couple of things. The first thing is no such thing as free. So whenever you hear the word free from a politician, what they mean is a taxpayer.
It means you're paying.
So let's look at some problems at the moment. Why is the NHS, one of the reasons why the NHS is in so much trouble is because of social care. It's bankrupting the NHS. Older people needing care. Look at councils. All councils will tell you their biggest thing they're paying at the moment, and has been for decades, and what's bankrupting them is social care, because people are getting older, living in their homes.
Is that mainly nursing homes, is it?
Nursing homes and care workers visiting you in your home, cooking your meals, stuff like that, because we're becoming a society of older and older people, which is great to a certain extent. So if this issue is bankrupting the NHS and bankrupting all the councils, Andy Burnham now wants to take it over. So it's going to bankrupt Greater Manchester. No such thing as free, so we'll all be paying for it. He will put up council tax to pay for it, and he wants to broaden it. At the moment, if you're a multi-millionaire old person, it's very hard for you to get social care. The answer is pay for it yourself. You're multi-millionaire. He's now saying, no, it'll be free at the point of service. Everybody will be entitled to it. So what's going to happen? Demand's going to rise. Let's say he does a really good job and it's an amazing service he provides in Greater Manchester, and you're somewhere in the country that has a crap social service. Where are you thinking of moving to next? Oh, I'll move to Greater Manchester. Just like rough sleepers do all over the country. Rough sleepers now come to Greater Manchester because some of the services are better here than where they come from.
The spare beds.
You create a pull factor. You pull people into the area who want better services if you provide a better service. He won't provide a better service because this issue is huge. It's multifaceted. There's so many problems, there's so many moving parts here. We need to look at why we have this problem. So people are living longer, great. But should that be our aim? For people to live longer, or should it be to people to live with a better quality of life? I know lots of old people whose quality of life is terrible. And if you spoke to them 30 years ago and they could see how they live now, they'd say, Jesus, end it for me. Now, I'm not for euthanasia, we talked about another thing, but what I'm talking about, our priorities in the NHS and in care is always about longevity of life. We need to start having conversations about quality of life.
Quality of life and longevity, yeah.
There may be a balance that we're all going to live slightly less longer, but up to that point, we're going to have much better lives.
Live like a king.
Exactly. So we need to have that discussion. So we're not going to have that here. We also have to look at family connections. Why are we dumping our old people onto the state to look after? Councils were set up to remove our refuge, and that's what we're doing now with our old people. They're worthless now. I don't want to look after them. The state will do that, just like they pick my bins up every fortnight. So families need to start looking at what they do for their family members. Many family members look after their old people. Many family members do a bit of it and the state do a bit, and then some just palm them off on the state. This is a conversation we need. I haven't got all the answers. I'm saying we need to have these conversations.
I was actually going to ask you, what's your answer to social care?
It's too complicated. I'd have to do a lot of research. In China, you can be arrested and sent to jail for abandoning your parents in China because they're trying to take it seriously. So there is no simple answers for this. All I know is the answer isn't the state does it all, because the state's trying to do it all now. And every week we have another story in the press of usually immigrants who've come to the country who are now carers beating the shit out of old people because they only came here for the job. They only came here for easy money. They've not got those caring traits. If we're going to keep the state doing this, we need to look at who we employ as carers. And I think we've talked about this before. Carers need to be on the same par of nurses. There should be a training course for them, a recognised qualification. We should pay them a lot more. And society needs to start respecting carers like we respect nurses. That then will attract better people into the role. So this role's not going away. So let's create a professional service for carers who then, when you're at a dinner party, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a carer. Oh, that's a fantastic job. That, well done you. I'm a nurse. Oh, that's another fantastic job. Well done. At the moment we go, you're a carer. Oh, you just wipe dirty asses, do you? We don't.
On minimum wage, yeah.
Yeah, we don't give them any societal respect. That's the first thing we need to change.
Very good. Next pledge. Andy. Andy will extend the Live Well programme across Greater Manchester. I don't even know, obviously it's not having much of an impact this because I'm not even aware of the Live Well programming, and he's now extending it as well. So what is it? What's he doing? And does anybody care?
Yeah. Is that the one about Yeah, that's the one. So again, I went, live well. I've never heard of it. And what does live well mean? Don't we all want to live well? This is what annoys me about politicians. They word things that sound good, but the average person is not sure what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And then the average person is too self-conscious to go, oh, I don't understand. I'm going to ask what they just go, oh yeah. So
Great news.
Out of embarrassment, we don't get to the bottom of it because these fluffy terms, we're not sure what they mean, and we don't want to sound like we're stupid. I'm quite happy to sound like I'm stupid and ask questions like, what does that mean, live well? So I had to have a look at that. And what it basically means is state welfare, social services, social support. So he wants Greater Manchester, for the next government that comes in, will be a Labour government, so he'll probably get his way. He wants Greater Manchester to be an experiment, a new pilot. He wants to basically take charge of the welfare system in Greater Manchester.
Is that similar to his previous pledge then? Is it kind of linked in?
Yes, the previous pledge was all around
Commission on social care.
Social care,
yeah.
As in looking after older people, disabled people and things like that.
This is everything now.
This is now basically benefit system.
Right. Oh, right. Okay.
So this is the benefit system. So he thinks he can look at our benefit system and get better value for money. Now, every socialist in the world always wants to give people more money and more stuff. The problem with our benefit system isn't how much money we're giving people. Part of the problem of our benefit system is the fact we're giving people too much money. That is the problem. Our benefit system needs to be a hand-up system, not a handout system. But that's what our system is now. And it became this within several years of this system being created after the Second World War. Bevin, who created this system, actually warned what was going to happen if we didn't have tight control over it. And within several years was saying, it's already happening. So we need to be really careful, and we're not. So can you imagine the Mayor of Greater Manchester, who wants to get voted in again, having control of our benefit system? Just like he's done with 16, 17 to 21-year-olds on the buses. There's a big bribe, vote me in again. We're going to give him the power in Greater Manchester to bribe people to vote for him. Oh, unemployed's all voting for me now because I'm giving them more money. Council tax is going up, by the way, by a big chunk. Horrendous. If we need to reform our state's benefit system. Doing it region by region isn't the answer.
No.
Giving the regions a little bit of power over certain things, I think, is a good idea. Let me give you an example. So, if you are living in Manchester, don't come into this. Let's say you're living in a former town in York, a former mining town in Yorkshire, which is still suffering from the close of the mine. There is no jobs there. There is no investment there, and you're signing on every fortnight, and you're being told, "Can you see your job searches? Can I see this? Can I see that?" That's fine to a certain extent. If you're living in Manchester or in London, and you've been signing on now for 4 years, it's like, you can get a job in Manchester, you can get a job in London. There's loads of vacancies there. We should be penalising you now. Your benefits should be cut, basically. But we wouldn't want this across the country, because that person in that Yorkshire town, unless he moved house, isn't going to find a job in that town. It's a lot harder than being in Manchester or London. So certain powers, certain tweaking of the system would be good for regions, for cities, for areas. I'm fully supportive of that. But not these sort of powers where he can bribe people, where he will have a socialist experiment. Let's say, again, he does an amazing job. The pull factor into Greater Manchester, if you're unemployed or you're on social benefits in Greater Manchester, you get 7% more than you do where I live now in Leeds. I'm moving to Greater Manchester because that's my income.
Yeah.
So again, they don't look at the pull factor. They also don't look at the disincentives for being on benefits. So now suddenly, well, I get more support now, I get more money now, I'm not treated like a leper anymore. So even better on benefits now.
Isn't it something like 7 million people or something who are now on benefit? Some crazy number, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm on out of work benefits.
Out of work benefits.
Some of them work part-time.
Yeah.
Well, the answer for you is work full-time.
Yeah.
So we have to pay your benefits. So yeah, it's just crazy. I read a stat the other day. in the last, let's say 10 years, it's the being diagnosed with ADHD and getting the benefit payment, which is £182 a week extra for being diagnosed with ADHD, according to this article I read, has gone up.
You get 180 quid a week extra.
Because it's a disability. It's a disability ADHD, which, by the way, I don't think exists. And lots of doctors across the world don't think it exists. But in the last 10 years, it being diagnosed with ADHD to claim this benefit has gone up. It was either 4,000% or 40,000%.
How many people?
Oh, it's tens and tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands now. Why wouldn't you diagnose your child with ADHD? It's a load of money. I know lots of people.
So if you've got a kid, if you're on benefits and you have a kid with ADHD, you get another 180 quid a week.
Yeah. And what people don't realise is there's lots of parents out there, the second they give birth, they're looking for defects. They're looking for learning difficulties because it's the way you get more money. They do it in schools, as in parents will go to school and they want their child diagnosed with some sort of issue at school because they get more money. It's when you give people the wrong incentives, you get the wrong results. And that's what we keep doing with our benefits.
That's scandalous, I don't know that.
I knew a guy who was a crackhead and a criminal in East Manchester. And he was being paid £40 a week to rub cream on his child for eczema. So he's the dad. Because he's a registered carer for his child, he rubs cream on his kid.
Gets an extra 40 quid.
40 quid a week, which should be a parent responsibility anyway.
Yeah.
The child doesn't even live with him. Because he's a crackhead, the child lives with his grandparents. And he still claims the £40 a week as carer. We keep taking responsibility away from parents. We should never be paying parents £40 to rub cream on their own kids. We shouldn't.
That's a horrendous story.
Yeah. And that,
I think the ADHD...
This was 15 years ago.
The ADHD story and the rubbing cream on your kid story is just... I didn't even realise this stuff was going on.
Yeah.
I thought people just got money if they were unemployed for stuff.
No,
it's all changed now, is it?
All changed. The sickness part of the benefits now is the biggest part. I understand why it started. So
who's actually documenting this sickness? GPs. So you go and see your GP and say,
GP first.
Yeah.
And then the benefits office have their own doctors you've got to then go to. But it's very. I tell you another story. I know of a guy who was on mental disability benefits, and what's great about that is you have to sign on fortnightly. You get an assessment once or twice, once either yearly or every 2 years. I can't remember what it is now. Let's say it's yearly. He gets an assessment. So you get all the benefits for a full year before you get assessed again. And what he did every year was when it came up to a couple of weeks before his assessment, he stopped shaving. A couple of days, a week before, he stopped showering and washing his hair. And the day of his assessment, he would go in his wardrobe, he would get out the clothes that he wore a year ago. He would put them on and they're dirty, they smell, they've got stains, food stains down it. His greasy hair, because he's not showered for a week, he'd comb down over his head, greasy hair, not shaved, look scruffy, would turn up and he would act like someone who was mentally impaired. And they would take him off again. And then he'd spend the rest of the year working. So that's what, not everyone's doing this, of course, but everybody I know who claims any type of welfare, financial welfare, has at some point broken the rules and claimed money they weren't entitled to. It might have been they went on a foreign holiday when they shouldn't have done. That's breaking the rules. It might have been a bit of work on the side, or they got tiny things, but also all the way up to claiming money for years and working, or living with a partner when she's claiming single parent allowance. Everybody I've ever met has done something like that. Everybody I've ever met.
Scandalous.
Yeah.
And the scandal on that is, I'm paying my tax diligently all the time.
Yeah.
And this is what it's paying for.
Yeah.
And then Andy Burnham thinks he can handle all that, does he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's never actually
had a job
or run a business or understands where the money comes from.
Doesn't understand human nature. He understands human political nature. He doesn't understand that when you create a system that can be abused, people start abusing it. It's human nature.
That's scandalous. The final pledge, and I'll talk about his general pledges in a minute. Andy will continue, and again, it sounds very laudable, very, very environmentally friendly. Not that I'm a fan of environmental friendly. Andy will continue to extend the green spaces, the Green Spaces Fund. And this has supported 80 community initiatives to bring unused or derelict green areas back into use for local people.
Yep.
I think there might be one around the corner from me, actually.
Yeah, possibly. So, on the face of it...
Good old Andy.
Sounds good, on the face of it. But when you put these in context, I only could find 5 pledges. This is one of them. So rather than talk about crime, our kids stabbing each other to death, and all the other issues we have in Greater Manchester, he thinks this is in his top 5 because he made a pledge about it. Now, do we want our brownfield sites or derelict lands turned into nice green environmental havens to local communities? Yeah, of course. Would that get on my top 50 problems of Greater Manchester? No, it wouldn't. So first of all, this shouldn't be a mayor problem. This is a council problem. So let the councils work on this. It's also a community problem as well. So if community groups get together, which they've done to apply for money off him, well, apply for money off the lottery. Apply for money off all these other places you can get money on and do it up. The community then takes responsibility for it. All fantastic. I've worked on projects like that. I've not got a problem with it. But for a city mayor to spend 1 second of his time on this issue and on this pledge just shows the level of this mayor we've got, that he doesn't think anything else is more important than this. It's, again, this is for votes. This is for those middle class people on the outskirts of Greater Manchester who are criticising him for allowing buildings and housing estates on the Greenbelt land, and he's trying to compensate some of that. He wants the green lobby on his side. He wants the eco nutcases on his side. This is, again, another piece of virtue signalling, and I'm sick of it. This pledge here should be about knife crime. It should be about burglary. It should be about a failing police force. It should be something important. That's hard work that he might take some criticism for, but at least we could go, Andy Burnham's a bit of a waste of space, but
At least he tried.
He's trying to tackle the real issues.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never met anybody in the last couple of years when I'm going on about, running for mayor, who've said to me, Nick, my priority is some extra green space in my neighbourhood. People have said, I don't want my green space to be taken over by a housing estate.
Yeah.
They've said that to me lots of times, but they've never said, I want to turn a piece of wasteland into a green resort for the neighbourhood. No one's ever said that. That's the one for me, which is a slap in the face. It's it's
an insult. You're right.
It's an insult. It's like, that's the best you can do. At least the other two that I've criticised on the welfare and the social services, at least there is a problem there to be solved. I think he'll make it worse.
Yeah.
But there is a problem to be solved there.
Yeah.
But this is just, if that's the best he can come up with one of his 5 pledges, it's just pathetic.
I agree. And what is staggering about those 5 pledges, there is not one pledge there related to crime and the police. And this is a man who is in charge of Greater Manchester Police.
Fully in charge of the police.
And there's not one pledge there where he's saying, I'm going to do this to stop young people being stabbed or whatever. I mean, we've already recounted in this episode, previous episodes, and the episode before, serious crimes taking place against young people within the Greater Manchester area. Yeah. And within his pledges there's nothing about that.
Nothing.
And that is something he can do without spending money, without demanding more tax offers, without promising things that he can never deliver, because he's in charge of it and he's already got a budget. This
exactly.
Yeah, and
he's got the budget. He's in charge of it, but more than that, he's legally responsible for Greater Manchester Police. He is the police crime commissioner.
Yeah,
he could revolutionise the police. What he should be doing is, I'm going to give us the police force that every police force in the country is going to want to copy. Look what I'm going to do here.
Yeah.
Look how crime's falling. Yeah. Look how public trust in the police are increasing. I mean, that's a problem you should be tackling. public trust in the police, because a police force cannot be successful when the public don't trust them. I was at a conference once with Peter Fahey, who was he's a chief constable of the Greater Manchester Police, several chief constables back again. And he said a stat that surprised me, it's always stayed with me. He said that Greater Manchester Police only solve 4% of crime by an officer being there. And he said the rest of it is investigations based on the public telling us stuff.
Oh, really?
So a police officer stumbling upon a crime is 4% of all crime being stopped in Greater Manchester.
The other 96% is people reporting crime.
Reporting crime, working with the police. So that just shows how important it is, public trust in the police, because if we don't have trust, we don't get the public working with the police and wanting them to do well and trusting them and telling them stuff. And that's impacting the police across the country at the moment. So he should be working out and doing projects on trust growing in the police. So we respect them again, so we trust them. Not even done that. And we've said, how many times have we said in our podcast, kids stabbing each other to death? He never says a word. He never speaks to the family. There's no videos of him sat next to the crying mother going, do you know what? I should have done better and I will do better. Now I've met you, I will do better. And I am responsible, and my apologies, because if I'd been better at me, and take some responsibility and show the people you care, and show the people that you're not passing the buck to someone else. I am responsible for this and I'm sorry, and it changes today, and the police will have my support, and we're going to crack down on this, and you're going to be hopefully you'll be the last mother I ever speak to who's in, and that's what we want from our leaders. But he'll just go, speak to my deputy. I gave responsibility to my deputy. Speak to my deputy.
That's too hard for him to address.
It is.
And too controversial, and endangers his path the way he's going.
Can you imagine what the average police officer would do if they saw him on TV going, I'm not having this. I want criminals caught. I want people being stopped and searched for knives. And if the police are called racist, they're not. I'm the one who told them to do it.
Yeah.
If he was on TV doing
supporting them,
police officers go, finally, we've got some support.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, as a police officer, you're looking at someone, and everyone's got the camera phones out. You're going to be filmed, and you're going, has he got a knife or hasn't he got a knife in his pocket? It looks a bit of a bulge. I'm not going to search him because all these people are going to film it. And if it turns out to be a mobile phone, I'm going to be a racist copper on TikTok. I'm not going to search him. Where if he knew the mayor's going to stick up for me, I am searching him, and it turns out it was a phone. Well, the mayor's still sticking up for me.
Yeah.
You cannot abandon your troops and expect them to do a good job. Troops need a leader. They need someone who'll take a bullet for them, not throw them under the bus every time something goes wrong and there's a bit of bad PR on Twitter and on TikTok.
Very strong words, Nick. Thank you very much. So that's the end of this particular podcast. Just a reminder to our viewers that the mayoral elections on the 2nd of May. Please vote for Nick Buckley, Greater Manchester Mayor.
And I don't make pledges, I make promises.
Excellent.
If you like that video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell and comment. And if you like what I'm saying about running for Mayor of Greater Manchester, then stick around. Tell your family, tell your friends. The only way I'm going to have a chance of winning is a grassroots movement. So be part of that movement and hit that bell. Thanks.